Love, Simon, directed by Greg Berlanti and based on the 2015 novel titled Simon vs. the Homo Sapiens Agenda, takes place in modern-day Georgia where a teenager named Simon is living with a giant secret. He's gay and none of his family members know, none of his friends know, and he feels trapped. Well, one day he begins anonymously chatting with one of his fellow students who also happens to be gay but hasn't told anyone either. Simon and Blue, as he calls him, begin chatting under aliases, but before long Simon finds out another of his fellow students knows he's gay, and he's scared he may out him. As Simon attempts to conceal his secret, he must either find a way to embrace his reality or conceal his secret a little longer. Okay, so I've been meaning to see Love, Simon for a while now, because it's a film that has a lot of buzz surrounding it, because of the social importance of it, and also because it's just considered to be a very well done film. But it wasn't really the buzz that led me into the theater, it was the trailers. Because I remember watching the trailers and thought that it looked like a really cool coming of age story. A different kind of coming of age story than we're used to. And the trailers, I'd say, were pretty spot on because I really enjoyed this film quite a bit. Probably a little bit more than I expected to, actually. And I say that because while the trailers did wow me, I wasn't sure if the movie entirely felt genuine. It sort of felt like a studio-driven and socially motivated product that would probably suffer from being disingenuous, but I'm happy to report honestly that's not the case at all. Love, Simon is a super endearing and super likable coming-of-age story that honestly hits most of the same beats we've seen in a lot of coming-of-age films. But it does so in a unique way by focusing specifically on how Simon and even some of his fellow students are struggling with either accepting who they really are or letting the rest of the world know who they really are. And in that way, I found this movie to be super relatable. Because there's always times when we're either uncomfortable or just unwilling to share things about ourselves because we're afraid of being judged, or afraid of not being accepted. And in Simon's case is that he's gay, and he's afraid that others are going to negatively judge him and not accept him for who he truly is. These feelings of insecurity are feelings we all experience at one point or another, especially during teenage years when we're mostly hyper-focused on image and social status. Nick Robinson really does play Simon beautifully. He portrays a character that's inherently kind-hearted, it's so easy to root for and empathize with. Simon spends most of the film struggling to find acceptance, and struggling to find a way to explain to his friends, family, and even the rest of the world who he really is. And you're informed very early on that Simon is in fact gay. He tells you that. So it's like a little secret that the audience knows that just the rest of the characters don't. And this definitely helps you root for him, because you're watching the inner conflict and the inner turmoil, and you're watching this kind person stress himself out over whether or not people are going to really accept him for being gay. This character is just very well written, and the character is very well performed. And he's an extremely likable lead that's super easy to sympathize with because of just how kind and just good he is. I also thought the supporting cast was great as well, because Simon's group of friends all have important roles to play in his story, and they all do a very nice job offering something specific of value to the film itself. They all have personalities, and they all have something that makes them believable and relatable in their own way. This is a coming-of-age film, and every friend of Simon's has some sort of insecurity of their own or some relatable issue that they're working through. I like that the film doesn't always focus on Simon. It's his story first and foremost, don't get me wrong, but there's also other characters that are going through growing pains too, and I liked how they truly diversified the coming-of-age story elements. But Simon's parents as well, played by Jennifer Garner and Josh Duhamel, were also really great. The family aspect works very well here too, because a big part of Simon's inner conflict stems from the fact that he doesn't have any idea how his parents are going to take the fact that he's gay. He doesn't know whether or not they'll accept him, or be happy for him, or even be mad at him. And that played a big part in making Simon a really compelling character, I'd say. He's compelling because he feels so isolated. He feels so alone. And the only person he can really be honest with is the anonymous email pal that he knows almost nothing about. It's not until later in the film when word gets out that Simon really starts to face some of his inner demons. And let me tell you, it gets pretty emotional. Love, Simon gets very emotional, and it's probably a movie that's going to get you teary-eyed multiple times because there's moments where you feel bad for Simon, and other moments where you feel happy for him. And it's actually a nice balance between the two. But something else that I don't think most people are probably going to expect coming into the movie is the comedy. I was actually pleasantly surprised in this department because I did actually find myself laughing quite a bit at this movie and I didn't expect to. There's a lot of really well written and really well timed jokes that actually add some lightheartedness, I'd say, and more balance to the story. Because this is a movie that can absolutely be enjoyed by the majority of audiences, barring some serious religious beliefs obviously, and I think a reason for that is because the story is well-rounded. It's touching, it's emotional, it's funny, and it's full of coming-of-age aspects that a lot of different people can relate to in some way or another. I also found the movie to be technically solid as well, because it's shot well, and I think that it does music even better. Music is actually overlooked in coming-of-age films in terms of its overall importance, because it's important because the music needs to help you feel like you're in high school, like you're experiencing what these kids are experiencing, and you're almost living their lives with them. It needs to make you feel that you're part of this environment which these characters are growing up in. And in order to do that, you need music that feels and sounds high school, and gets you in that high school feel. It's vital for immersion. There's only one area that I felt like Love, Simon overdoes it, and some people are going to find this a little bit nitpicky, but here it is regardless. There's a couple characters who serve as the bullies of the film, I guess you could say. The characters that are extremely homophobic and nasty towards any gay students at the school, and the characters aren't majorly important overall, but I feel like they're sort of over the top, and kind of feel like cheap conflict and cheap villains thrown into the story. And when you watch them, you're going to despise what they do, and you're supposed to. But this little subplot doesn't always feel genuine. It feels over the top and forced. But overall, I thought Love, Simon was fantastic. It's a great coming-of-age film that's executed very well basically across the board. As for the pros cons, I thought Love, Simon delivered an excellent and emotional coming-of-age story, extremely likable characters, a very immersive and well-assembled soundtrack, and some very nice comedic moments. As for the cons, just a couple areas of forced conflict. But that's honestly it. I'm going to give Love, Simon a 9.5 out of 10, and definitely recommend you check this one out if you're into coming-of-age stories. There's a lot to like here. So did you guys see Love, Simon yet? What did you think of it? And if not, let me know why not. And also let me know your favorite coming-of-age film. I think mine's still The Edge of 17. But either way, that's all for now. This is WillFoxification signing off. See you in the next review.